Most of week 1 is in the books, and it started back on Thursday night with a game between the Lions and Chiefs. This was a highly anticipated game because we would finally see if the Detroit Lions were for real or if they were frauds, and the Chiefs would promptly take care of business. And as we know now, the Lions won with a score of 21-20. And my biggest takeaway for the Lions was they beat the champions in their place and kneeled it out in Arrowhead, and nobody can take that away from them. Brian Branch will be a great player in the NFL, and I think they got a steal in the second round in Branch. And I also think Hutch is going to be a big problem for, well, everyone this year. And the pace Jahmyr Gibbs plays with when he has the ball in his hands is unreal, truly. And for Kansas City, the takeaway is obvious, guys. I know it's cliche to say a team needs a player, but I have a hard time seeing the Lions win if Travis Kelce plays. And again, credit to Detroit for going into Arrowhead and winning, but the Kadarius Toney story isn't anywhere close to what it is at the moment if Travis plays. And starting out 0-1 and having to go to Jacksonville in week 2, a team who is very much looking for revenge for how their season ended last year, is certainly not an ideal way to start the year for Kansas City. And staying in the AFC for the second game, and it's CJ Stroud's NFL debut against the Baltimore Ravens. As for Stroud specifically, he got better as the game went on and more comfortable too. I don't think that should be surprising, and despite the 25-9 score, I liked generally what I saw from the Texans. They actually outgained the Ravens, and Lamar Jackson did not look comfortable. And I know no one wants to hear about moral victories in a 16-point loss, but all things considered, I thought the Texans did alright. As for Baltimore, this was a very ugly win as they averaged just 3.4 yards per carry, and you would have liked to see them getting more of a rhythm offensively against a team that you internally think you are much better than. And I hate to say this because it seems like we say this all the time with the Ravens, but I hope they can stay healthy as Marlon Humphrey did not play, and they fear J.K. Dobbins tore his Achilles. From a result standpoint, this game was pretty much what I expected, and a special shout out to the 25-9 scoregami. And from CJ Stroud's debut to Bryce Young's, we go to discuss Panthers-Falcons. This was an extremely frustrating game for the Panthers, as the player they traded so much to give and so much future draft capital for threw just 146 yards and 2 interceptions in his NFL debut. What I will say is to not overreact entirely over a singular game for a rookie quarterback who also does not have great weapons to throw to. I was disappointed that Adam Thielen only had 2 catches for 12 yards, as I thought he would have a significant impact early on, and he finished 6th on the team in receiving yards. And the thing to remember for Bryce Young specifically is it's going to take time to gel and to get things going in the regular season. For Atlanta, I absolutely loved Jesse Bates, and he was the game-changing safety they wanted in free agency. And the offensive line was not great pass blocking wise, but they were dominant in the run game, and this is the type of game Atlanta likes to play every single week. Win the turnover battle and let Bijan and Tyler Algier go to work. I said this in the Falcons team preview earlier this summer, but it's going to be a lot more split of a backfield than people may have initially thought. And we'll knock out one more rookie quarterback's debut, and it's Anthony Richardson's Colts, who lost at home to the Jags. The Jags are up first, and Calvin Ridley is going to be a problem. Granted, the Colts secondary isn't good, but to go for over 100 yards and a touchdown in your team debut is obviously huge, but it's also what everyone was hoping for when they made this trade. There are certainly some mistakes the Jags will need to clean up, but it is week 1, and I would be surprised if Tank Bigsby does, well, that again. And for Anthony Richardson, I thought he looked the best out of the rookie quarterbacks today, and he did get hurt with a minute left, but as I record this, it is believed to be just a bone bruise. There were significant flashes in week 1 from Richardson, and that's going to be the story with the Colts, is they need to get talent around him. Because as we saw at times in this game, the talent he has is limitless, and the stage was not too big for him. Back east we go to Landover, Maryland to discuss the Cardinals and Commanders, and I thought the Cardinals played a lot better than I initially thought they would have. I thought this could have been a sheer out-talent game and that the Commanders could have won by 2 touchdowns or even more. But I like this for the Cardinals' future with Jonathan Gannon because their offense was abysmal. They averaged less than 4 yards per carry, and Josh Dobbs was, well, pretty much what you would expect from Josh Dobbs. But They sacked Sam Howell 6 times, and the best thing for the Cardinals in Week 1 was they and the Texans both lost. And if you did not know, the Cardinals have the Texans' 2024 first-round pick in what is a loaded draft class. As for Washington, FedEx Field was rocking, and that was something we have not seen in a long time, and good for the Commanders fan base, truly. But it's better to get this ugly type of win now out rather than later, and to have Sam Howell bounce back despite getting beat up time after time after time. And a huge shout out to a player who I think is extremely underrated in Montez Sweat, who absolutely changed the game. From Landover to the Big Easy we go to discuss the Titans and Saints, and I was extremely disappointed with not only Ryan Tannehill, but I was also disappointed in only giving Derrick Henry 15 carries in this game. Sure, we can focus on Tannehill, but in a game where there were only 31 total points scored, why would you only give the King 15 carries? To me, that's absurd, and what I will say is despite how much at times Ryan put this team in a pickle and very much in a position to lose, this is like another team we'll discuss later. It's a 1-point loss for mistakes that were very easily fixable. For New Orleans, I was glad to see Chris Olave go for over 100 yards, and I do think he is in for a big year in 2023. But for the Saints' run game, yes, it was awful, but I kind of thought it would be bad going in because the Titans' defense is a lot better than what people realize. Trevor Penning was certainly a liability early on, but did get better as the game went along. And we'll say this for New Orleans quite a bit this year, but in a division where 9 wins can probably get you a playoff berth, any win helps in a big way, and good for them. And from the south, we go to the north to discuss the Bucs and Vikings. As most of you probably know, I am a Vikings fan, but I do want to say, big credit to Tampa for showing up and keeping the pressure on all game long. They were opportunistic and took advantage of 3 big Vikings turnovers. And my biggest thing, and I'll probably end up doing a video on this in the future, is I have a lot of frustration with the play calling on Minnesota's side at times. There seems to be a priority to get guys like CJ Ham and TJ Hawkinson involved, and there's obviously not a problem with that, especially Hawkinson, but it's the lack of depth on these plays that's extremely frustrating. And Kevin O'Connell's play calling at times is very suspect. But Jordan Addison played well, and Justin Jefferson was, well, Justin Jefferson, as he went for 150 yards in the season debut. But big credit to Antoine Winfield Jr. and the Bucs defense, because turnovers is the name of the game, and they forced 3 to Minnesota's 0. They heard the noise all offseason and went into US Bank Stadium and won. Next up is the Browns and Bengals, and the first thing I'll say before really diving into this is the Bengals will probably be fine in the long run, but this is about as bad of a loss as they could have experienced in Week 1, and earlier this week, they signed Joe Burrow to a huge contract extension, which is putting it mildly for the contract extension, that is, and the first game out since he gets outgained by over 200 yards, they get outscored by 21 points, and T. Higgins, a player who rightfully so wants a contract extension, gets targeted 8 times and has a total of 0 catches. 142 yards of offense as a team will almost never get it done, and it certainly did not on Sunday. For Cleveland, I think Nick Chubb is one of the best pure runners in the NFL, and we saw that again on Sunday, but I am still not convinced Deshaun Watson is the long-term answer there. Could he be? Sure, but I personally am not convinced at this point, and that interception Watson threw was very, very ugly. But a big shout out goes to Jim Schwartz for holding the Bengals offense to just 3 points. Again, the Bengals will be fine, but if you're a Browns fan, you are absolutely drinking the Kool-Aid after this game, and rightfully so, by the way. A 21-point win over a division rival that's went to back-to-back AFC Championship games, including a Super Bowl appearance. Browns fans are understandably on cloud 9. And we're heading a little east to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to discuss the 49ers and Steelers, and woo boy, was this a bad game for the Steelers. The 49ers offense looked unstoppable, and I know 49ers fans were having a field day with the Patrick Peterson media comments, and this offense put up 30 points with George Kittle essentially on a pitch count. But Christian McCaffrey had nearly 170 yards by himself, including a big 65-yard score, and Brandon Ayuk had over 100 yards, and they played tremendous as a team. For the Steelers, this is bad. There's no justifying a 23-point home loss at the start of a season in which you expected to take the next step, period. I know Mike Tomlin and the team will right the ship, but Kenny was sacked 5 times and they only ran for 41 yards as a team because they were down early and had to continuously fight an uphill battle. There was a point where the 49ers had something in the ballpark of 200 yards to the Steelers 1. as in a singular yard. And right now, if Steelers fans are panicking, while they will probably be fine in the long run, you really can't blame them after this woeful of a start. To the Windy City we go, and guys, we may have to face the reality: Jordan Love is a good quarterback. I know people don't want to hear it, but he threw for 245 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Bears, and I think Jordan being good and the Bears not being as far along in the rebuild as they once thought they were can both be true, and I think both were true in week 1. I like Jordan Love and think he will be a good quarterback, especially when he gets his feet more underneath of him in the National Football League. This was obviously not the start to the season the Bears wanted, and credit to Green Bay. But for the Bears, this was not only a nightmare scenario, but a huge problem I have is DJ Moore, the guy that was a coveted acquisition this offseason, had 2 targets all game. An all-around bad game for the Bears. Next up is Eagles-Patriots, and while I think the Eagles are a Super Bowl caliber team, they were very rusty offensively, and it showed. And the counterpoint to that may be that Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time, had all summer to prepare for this game, and I don't think it should be too surprising they struggled against an improved Patriots defense. But for Philly, a win is a win, and for New England, Mac played good, and this was against one of the best teams they'll play all year. Yes, they'll play the in-division teams twice, obviously, but I think the Patriots showed they can hang with the best of the best. And that's big because a lot of people, and I'm included in this by the way, counted them out of a serious run before the season even started. The Las Vegas Raiders are undefeated in the Jimmy G era and are on their way to going 20-0. But all jokes aside, a win is a win, and certainly not all of them are going to be pretty. And personally, I thought Denver would start the Sean Payton era with a win, as I thought Josh McDaniels was a bad coach, and I would like to credit the Raiders for winning this game. And I hope Jacoby Myers is okay, as he stepped up in a big way and had 2 touchdowns in the win. For Denver, they have the talent, but this has been a truly historic run over the past 2 years, and not in a good way. Will they ever rebound is something everyone will be paying attention to. Will Lutz certainly didn't help in week 1, but I was very surprised this team couldn't put the Raiders away, considering Las Vegas will probably be picking in the top 10 or 12 picks. The biggest surprise of the day to me was the 17-point thumping the Rams gave the Seahawks in Seattle. Hand up, I counted the Rams out and they proved me wrong in a big way, and unfortunately the Seahawks proved me wrong as well, but in the opposite way. Obviously week 1 does not determine the whole season, but congratulations to the Rams, truly. Matt Stafford played well and looked comfortable, which was something we did not see for, well, really the entire 2022 season. If Cooper comes back healthy after week 4, who knows? And for the Hawks, they were on the field defensively for nearly 40 minutes and were outgained by over 230 yards. This was about as bad of a start to the season as they ever could have imagined. And it really doesn't get easier for them as they go to Detroit in week 2, who have a few extra days rest. I was very disappointed with Seattle in week 1. Down I-5 to LA we go to discuss the Dolphins and Chargers game, and the first thing is, man, what a game. And as a Tua fan, what a performance, as his stat line looked like a Madden stat line, and he played his tail off in this game. Tyreek went for over 202 scores, and they flew back to Miami with an extremely hard-fought win. And perhaps the best part for the Dolphins, 0 sacks allowed. As for the Chargers, I love Justin Herbert too, and this was actually 2 of my favorite quarterbacks squaring off in the same game, but this game was just very Chargers. I hate to sound like that, but it's seemingly the same meal with different seasonings every single week with this team. It doesn't matter if it's the Dolphins in week 1 or the Lions or Browns teams that went winless several years ago, somehow, some way, the Chargers would be in the game with them, and they would take it down to the wire. And I thought Brandon Staley should have been fired last offseason, and allowing what they did to Tua in week 1 only reaffirms the thought. But that's all for the week 1 recap. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe, as only about 24% of people watching are subscribed, and it helps tremendously. My Patreon and Twitter links are in the description if you'd like to support the channel, and until the next video, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.